gosh, the sun's coming up. Happy Pride. First and foremost, happy Pride. Hopefully this video will be going up during Pride Month, but if not, still happy Pride. I am non-binary myself, and I wanted to sort of just make a video detailing my journey of realizing I was non-binary and then eventually sort of coming to terms with that, what it means for me, and hopefully this can help somebody out there with their journey, maybe help them figure something out about themselves or just see that they're not alone. I was actually already planning on doing this video, and then it was also requested, so I was like, look at that. That's perfect. This is what the fans want to see. So I'll just get right into it. It pretty much started back in high school theater, which I've made videos about being in theater and stuff in the past. And anybody in theater knows that like 80% of the people in there are queer in some capacity. It's not necessarily that being in theater makes you gay or something. It's more so just that it's a very expressive and open-minded sort of field. So a lot of people there felt comfortable being themselves. And in that space, I knew that I wasn't completely straight. I didn't have any sort of label on it yet, but I had never really considered gender. I never even really knew that that was something to consider, but a lot of people in theater identified as trans or non-binary, which sort of opened my eyes to like this whole other world of identity that I had never really experienced prior. So at the time, I had just done a big chop and cut off like almost all of my hair. It was really short. Plus we were wearing masks because of COVID, so you couldn't really see anybody's faces that well. And I remember somebody told me that because my hair was really short at the time, I might get mistaken for a guy. And I remember thinking about it and realizing that that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. I wouldn't be too upset with that. Now that was like the very, very first spark. And so because I was surrounded by people of all identities, it kind of got me thinking about my own. And again, it didn't necessarily make me, it just allowed me to feel comfortable exploring that side of myself. All my life, even as a child, I've never really felt like a girl necessarily. I just felt like I was sort of going along with the conventions that were expected of me. I remember when I was really little, like in elementary school, I noticed that my voice was noticeably lower than all of the other girls in my class. And I remember thinking that I was like, maybe I'm like secretly a boy. Like maybe I'm a boy and I don't know it. And even now, my voice is typically deeper than some of my friends who I guess identify as girls. And maybe that doesn't like come through totally on camera, but like, I swear it's true. Yesterday, I was told that I sound much older than I am and that I sound like a Discord mod. So there was that, I guess. But personally, I really love my voice. I love that I feel like it's one of the only things that I've been able to achieve complete androgyny in, and it's something that I'm personally really happy with. Also, something about the performing femininity, I've always, since like probably like middle or high school, I've hated wearing dresses. And not just hated like, oh, that it was like itchy or uncomfortable. Like I would have like complete and total like breakdowns anytime that I had to wear a dress or something feminine and formal. I remember during high school, my friends wanted to do something for homecoming aside from like going to the actual dance. We were just gonna like go out to eat and stuff. And I was so down because everybody was like, I don't want to pay for a ticket. I don't want to have to dress up. I don't want to have to do all that. And I was so down, right? Because I was like, I was not going to try and force myself to wear a dress for an entire night. But then they decided that we were still going to dress up and go out. And I remember just feeling so much like dread about that because I was like, I went to homecoming last year and I felt like I was going to die the whole time because I felt so uncomfortable. I had brought a jacket with me and I remember I was like wrapping myself in it the whole time, constantly kept yanking down like the hem of the dress. Like it was so uncomfortable. So like the fact that we were doing this, not even going to the dance where you would be required to be formal, but we were going to like a restaurant and I was gonna have to wear a dress. I was like so terrified. And you could think that like obviously, you know, you don't have to wear a dress, but I was still like going through things mentally. I hadn't really like understood how I felt in terms of gender. Also, my family didn't know. It would have been a whole mess if I would have tried to wear something other than a dress. So, and I remember having like full on like panics and I was trying to tell my friends, I was like, oh, like maybe we shouldn't dress up, you know, like if we're just gonna go hang out and stuff, like why do we have to dress up? And they were like, no, like we want to. And obviously if they want to, I mean, I'm not gonna tell them no. And so I like had this whole plan that I was gonna wear like a dress or something and I was just gonna wear like a jacket or a coat or something on top of it. And then I ended up not actually even going just because I kept having panic attacks about something completely unrelated, so I couldn't go anyway. But I just remember feeling that like terror like impending terror of knowing that I was gonna have to wear a dress. And I tried to convince myself that I felt that way just because I know how I am and I know how much I love my sweatpants and my hoodie combo. So I was just thinking like, oh, like I just don't like that I'm gonna have to go outside of my like loungewear bubble. But it wasn't that, because I'm okay with dressing up if it means I can wear pants or like something maybe more traditionally masculine. I felt that way because I was like forcing myself into a box or an expression that wasn't me, and sometimes that like physically hurt, right? And the weird thing that I identified is that if it's in terms of cosplay or like a costume or something like that, I am completely fine with wearing a dress. Like I have worn cosplays that included skirts or dresses or whatever, and that was fine. And that's because in that case I am somebody else. I'm putting on somebody else's costume and I'm portraying them, and so that's fine. But if I have to go out as myself and wear a dress or something, it feels so icky to me personally. I can't do it. And while I didn't feel like a girl, I didn't really feel like a boy either. I thought that because I felt I was so far from femininity, I had to lean more into masculinity or what I expected a boy to be. I tried to like picture myself hanging out with like the groups of guys that I knew and like imagining myself being perceived as one of them, not like a girl hanging out with a bunch of boys, but like a boy like them, and I couldn't do that either. And of course, this made me consider what being a boy or being a girl actually even meant. Like, was being a girl just wearing dresses and putting bows in my hair or something? No. And is being a boy rolling around in the mud and playing sports? No, obviously not. Like, those are stereotypes. Those are caricatures of the gender that they represent. There's no finite definition of what a boy or what a girl is. They're just concepts that we hold in our mind. Some people try to bring in biology as like a gotcha moment, but intersex people exist, which means that sex is not binary, and they exist more commonly than you'd think. So do they just like not get a gender because they don't fit in the sex of male or female? No, they choose the gender that aligns most closely with their personal identity, or they just choose not to identify at all. But that's the thing, right? Their personal identity. I realized that gender is such an internalized concept, and honestly, I still study that to this day. Wearing certain clothing or liking certain things or certain hobbies doesn't assign you a specific gender, because like feminine men exist and masculine women exist. People try and say the things of like, oh, makeup is for women, but men can wear makeup and that's fine. Or being surprised when women are into things like cars or sports, because they're not restricted to just one gender. They're just interests that anybody can share. And what is it that tells these masculine women or feminine men that they aren't just trans? It's their internalized self-concept. Feminine men know that they're men. Masculine women know that they're women. Gender is honestly such a complex topic, and it's so difficult to put it into words, but I can say this. Once you get past the idea of biology or presentation, gender really becomes like nothing. It's not necessary in society the way that like sex, as in like female or male, is for reproduction or like the furthering of the species or whatever. Gender is mostly used as a way to subjugate the people that society deemed like the inferior sex, being females or, as society would say, women. By using physical traits like a smaller or weaker figure, society was able to posit women as this like inherently helpless group that was dependent on men for security and stability and all things like that. And this has persisted for literal centuries, but if somebody were to just like press a reset button, you could literally just like reverse all of the stereotypes with little to no change. Women could be deemed like tough and dominant, while men are like the soft and submissive ones. And then obviously because of societal expectations, that would just be perpetuated throughout generations. And largely nothing would change because people of all genders exhibit these traits. Nothing but, like I said, societal expectations links these expressions to any specific gender labels. And society gets things wrong a lot more than it gets things right, so you can't really use that as like a credible source. And so because at this point gender literally meant like nothing to me, I couldn't find myself associating with the identity of a girl or a boy, or I guess a woman or a man. I completely understand that other people do find comfort or joy in identifying with the label of a woman or a man, but I personally, I couldn't do it. It didn't fit. It didn't seem like me. And obviously in my circles, I'd heard of the term non-binary, so I started to seriously look into it. It seemed like something that could potentially fit me. I saw the definition of, just falling outside the gender binary of like man and woman, and that seemed to fit me pretty well. So I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I thought about it. I remember I was going on vacation with my family, and on the entire plane ride, I just kept repeating in my head, like, oh, did you hear what Nick said? They said that, or, oh, did you see Nick? They were doing blah, 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 blah. And I was just testing out, like, using the name Nick and, like, the pronouns of they, them. And I chose Nick because I like the name Nick. And I tried to convince myself that it is a unisex name. Honestly, I believe anything can be a unisex name if you try hard enough. I read a book about a girl named James, and by the end of the book, I was like, yeah, James is a unisex name, even though I'd never heard it used by a girl before. But I told myself that Nick was unisex because I read the book Vanishing Girls by Lauren Oliver, which I loved at the time, and the main character's name is Nick, and she's a girl. And I also watched the show No Good Nick on Netflix. I miss that show so much. And the main character's name is Nick, and she's a girl. And I think that both of those were using Nick as like a nickname short for something, but that doesn't matter. It's just literally the fact that their name was Nick. If somebody said Nick, their head would turn and they were a girl. So I was like, okay, it could totally be a unisex name, and it is. I forgot to put this in my notes, but that's actually the reason why my channel name is Nope Just Nick, because when I started introducing myself as Nick, people obviously didn't know that I was non-binary, and they would say, oh, Nick, short for Nicole, and I would say, nope, just Nick. It's so corny, but I realized that I was saying the exact same thing every single time. So when it came time for me to make like a handle, I was like, oh, nope, just Nick. Yep. Yeah. And then as for pronouns, I went through a literal cycle of pronouns, and it's so funny because you can see the evolution on my audition sheets for different shows that we did in school. Like when they would have you put down your name and pronouns, I started off by using she, her, and then that became she, they, and that became they, she, and then eventually it became they, them. And when I came back from vacation, I started like slowly rolling out the new like name and pronouns. It was first to like my closest friends, and then my inner circle, and my classmates and my teachers. I don't even think I directly told like my parents, but somehow they found out. I don't know. I think it's because my mom saw my Instagram or something. I don't remember. And I can't even lie, like it was not easy. It was extremely nerve-wracking every time I would tell a friend like, hey, I just wanted to let you know, like I go by Nick now, and I like use they, them pronouns. Or if I just told them I go by Nick now, and then they would say, oh, what pronouns do you use? And I would say they, them. And it was so nerve-wracking, both because like I was sharing this like intimate part of myself that I wasn't even completely confident on yet. It felt right, but it was such a big leap for me. I just wasn't sure. And then also because I know how non-binary people are perceived in like, society, I still literally see a little like flicker of panic in people's faces like now when I tell them that my name is Nick, because I guess they immediately hear that and they're thinking like, oh my gosh, this is one of those they, them transsexuals or something. And I'm just like, I don't know. Like, obviously that's not my problem. That's something they have to deal with themselves, but it's still scary. And I am so lucky and so blessed that all the people around me were really accepting and really understanding. Like I said, I was in theater, so especially coming out to people in theater, it was the same as telling them I had knees or something. Like, it wasn't a surprise. And luckily, people even outside of theater understood. And one of my friends, she made it her responsibility to like correct anybody who got my pronouns wrong. And obviously I know that she was just being kind and looking out for me, and I'm really grateful for her for that. But that was also really scary because it was kind of like making it more obvious than it would have been. Like if somebody just used she or whatever, like I don't care. I know that they're not doing it out of malintent, but then when she's like, no, they, then I'm like, oh, like I'm grateful, but it's also like now it's out there and it's like there's a spotlight on me, like this person uses they, them, and it's like, oh gosh. I didn't really like that part of me being like accentuated. I kind of wanted it to be like a natural part of my identity, just like being black or something. Like that's something I don't have to explain, though obviously that is different because that's visible. Me using they, them pronouns isn't really something you would know just by looking at me, but you know. And I really don't blame myself for feeling that way because I was still really early on in my journey, and remnants of that anxiety still remain to this day. But mostly I am a lot more open about my identity. I post about it all the time on social media. My pronouns are in like every social media bio that I have, and I post about being non-binary on my personal accounts like all the time. One thing that does continue to bother me though is performative allyship, and that's not like my friend who was like my pronoun warrior or whatever, but more so people who pretend to care for like the woke points or the aesthetic or something, being like, oh, look at me, I'm such a good person, I asked for their pronouns, and then not actually using them. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Because especially, it's always the same at school. Every time I join a new club and we have the first meeting, we always have to go around in a circle and we have to say our name, our grade, our hometown, our major, and our pronouns, right? It's always those 5. Sometimes they'll leave out hometown, but a lot of people have pride in their hometown, so they'll ask that anyway. And asking about the pronouns would be a really good thing if it was like promoting an environment where everybody can feel like comfortable and safe and openly themselves, but it doesn't. Or rather, it can, but in my experiences, I am always the only person in the circle who uses they, them, or just honestly any pronoun aside from like what society would expect you to use if they just looked at you, right? And obviously it is still important to ask pronouns because you never know, but honestly all it ever does is just single me out, because then when I'm there and I say I use they, them, or pronouns they, them, or something, and then everybody like looks at me and they're like, oh, this person uses they, them, and it's like, okay, like it just feels awkward. And you would think that like this isolation of me being the only person in the circle who uses them would make it easier to remember. People still just don't. They don't even use it. Like once we start doing an icebreaker, or you know, we're talking one-on-one or something, people will almost always default to she or her for me. So it's like a lot of times people will forget the names of the people in the circle too. So it's like, what's even the point of the exercise? And it's gotten to the point where I kind of just like skip the pronouns part to avoid being put on like an island. And I hope people don't notice, because if they do, then they might think that I'm one of those people that's like, I don't have pronouns or something, despite I being a pronoun. But you know, I will like let people know if we're having a one-on-one conversation, or if it ever becomes relevant. I don't really introduce myself with my pronouns a lot of the time, but if it does become relevant, I'll just be like, hi, just so you know, I use they, them. And then people will be like, oh, okay. It is less convenient than I guess just saying it in the icebreaker, but you know, it's a little bit less awkward for me, and it's usually worth it in the end. And now where I am, I'm pretty confident in my identity. I typically aim for androgyny, like I said before, not typically too masculine or too feminine. The only things that are typically feminine about me are like my space, I guess, and then I don't know, I do makeup for videos, but that's quite literally it. I don't wear makeup in any other context aside from my videos. And then I typically shop in the guys section just because that's pretty much how I would achieve androgyny, knowing, you know, my style and everything. And sometimes I do find myself like studying guys either in public or at my school in terms of their clothing or their posture or their hair, and like studying how I can like achieve that look. And I'll feel that wave of gender envy just hit me like a ton of bricks, and it hurts like a ton of bricks would, because I realize that I will never come across as like naturally masculine as they do. I have to like put in the work to look that way, where they just get up and are like that. So my story is still not over. The rest is still unwritten, you could say. I really do wish that non-binary identities could be more normalized in society and that I wouldn't have to explain myself. But I get that where we are right now, we still have a lot of work to do, and I'm putting in the work. I will continue to speak up and speak out, because I know that I'm not the only one. There's a lot of other people like me out there who are just trying to find their way. And I really do hope that this story helped somebody out there. I know it was kind of all over the place, but if nothing else, it really helped me process my own journey, and I can really see how far I've come and how far I can still grow. I love sharing these personal aspects because, like I said, you know, we're all so interconnected. It's so easy to believe that the way that I feel is completely unique and nobody has ever struggled with this before, but a lot of us are in the same boat. And I really think that when we share things like this, we can find so many people like us out there. And you know, humans are social creatures. We need other like-minded individuals around us to lift us up. So hoping I can be that for at least one of you out there. If you want to talk about this further, let me know in the comments. I read every comment. Thank you so much for watching, and I don't have an outro, so bye.